Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the properties of real numbers. And the first one is the idea of commutative. So basically, when you talk about commutative, the idea is that you can switch places of two real numbers, x and y. So for example here, addition, the process of addition here is commutative. As you can see, the numbers here can be switched. So first we have x plus y, and the result of x plus y is going to be equal to y plus x. So you can think of it as something like 3 plus 2. So these are two real numbers, and the result here is 5. And this is also the same thing if you switch the position of 2 and 3. So 2 plus 3, the result is also equal to 5. So that's the idea of commutative. You can switch places and you will get the same result. So this is the process of addition, which is commutative for two real numbers. And we also have the idea of multiplication over here, which is also commutative for two real numbers. And you can see that for this one, you can switch the places of x and y to y times x, and the result is going to be the same. So again, the idea of commutative means you can switch the positions of two real numbers. Now let's look at the idea of associative. And basically, when you talk about associative, the idea is that you can regroup. So you can regroup elements with the new friend. Okay, so something like this. You can regroup the elements with new friend. Okay, this is how you can think of the process of associative. So for example here, this is the first group of x plus y. So this is the group. We have the bracket over here and plus z. Z is another real number. Now you can change the group. So you can change the position of the group. For example, you can regroup that to y plus z, and the result is still going to be the same. So one way of trying to visualize this is by, for example, considering some real numbers. Well, you can try this for 1 plus 2 plus 3. So this is what's going on here, and you will see that the result is going to be, we solve something in the bracket first, so 3 plus 3 is going to be 6. Now if you regroup the elements here, for example, you have 1 plus 2 plus 3, let's say the group is like this, and you're going to solve the one in the bracket first. So this is according to the basic operations which you have already seen in the previous video. So we will have 1 plus 5, and the answer is also going to be 6. Okay, so that is the idea of associative. When you have addition process, the process here can be associative. So this is the associative property of real numbers. Now similarly for multiplication is the same thing. So you have multiplication process over here. We have x multiplied to y, and then you have the first group over here, and then the result is going to be multiplied with z. And you will get the same result if you regroup. If you change the bracket to these two guys over here, you regroup the elements and you will still get the same result. Okay. Now let's talk about the idea of distributive. So basically when you talk about distributive, for example, you can see over here that you can see we have the multiplication process. So this is the multiplication process that you can see over here. We can say that distributive means that we can have multiplication distribute across addition. Okay, so you can distribute this process across addition. For example, if you have x plus y times z, so you can distribute this to x and z. So we got over here, and then we have the addition process, and you distribute y to z. So similar thing with this one, x can be distributed, y can be distributed to x, or vice versa. So we got x and y, and then we have the addition process, and we have x and z. Alright, now let's talk about the idea of identity. So basically, when you talk about identity, you are looking to find what number such that when you do the process, you will get back the original x. So what number that gives you the original x. So under the addition process, you have number 0 over here. So this is the number. So number 0 over here is the number that when you add 0 to x, you will get back the original x. So that's the idea. So 0 is, we can say that 0 is the identity under the addition process. So this is under identity under the addition process. And sometimes we can give a better name, which is, we can call it 0 as additive identity. So under the process of addition, 0 is the number that when you add that number to x, you will get back x. Now, for multiplication, the number that gives you the original x is going to be 1. It is not 0, because if you multiply 0 with x, you will get 0. You don't get the original x. So under the multiplication process, 1 is the identity. So we can say that 1 is the identity under the multiplication process. And you can give a better name, which is, you can say that this is multiplication identity. So multiplication identity. Okay, so that's the idea of identity. Really, it is quite simple. You just need to find numbers that when you do the process, which is either addition or multiplication, you will get back the original number. Alright, let's talk about additive inverse. So basically, when you talk about additive inverse or multiplicative inverse, now we're talking about inverse. Basically, you want to find value. You want to find value that brings back the identity element. So recall that when you talk about addition process, the identity element is 0. When you talk about multiplication, the identity is 1. So this is what you have seen in the previous slide. Yeah. Therefore, we are going to find what value. We're going to find what is the value that when you add the value to original x, you will get 0. The result is 0. So you need to get this result. So what is the value that you can add to x in order to get 0? So the value here is going to be negative x. So this is the additive inverse. So negative x, we can say that negative x is the additive inverse. Okay. Now, similar to the idea of additive inverse, if you talk about multiplicative inverse, which is also known as reciprocal, what you can see is you need to find what value such that when you multiply with x, so you want to find what value such that when you multiply with x, the result is going to be equal to 1. So this is the result, which is equal to 1. And that value is going to be 1 over x. So when you multiply the original value with 1 over x, so 1 over x here is the value such that it helps you get back the identity element. So x and 1 over x. So we call it multiplicative inverse. So 1 over x here is the multiplicative inverse. Now, the idea of zero product is pretty simple, really. What you have is when you multiply any real number with 0, this is the same thing as 0 times x. Why is that so? Because when you talk about multiplication, the property is actually commutative. This is what you have seen over here. We have two values here. When you multiply, the property here is commutative. You can switch the position. So this is what we have over here. X times 0 is equal to 0 times x, and the answer is going to be equal to 0. Now, if you have two real numbers, x and y equal to 0, then you can have a possibility of either x being 0 or y being 0 or both being 0. Okay. Now, let's talk about the idea of negation. So basically in this part here, when you have a negative value, so -1, so you times with negative x, the result is going to be positive x. So similarly, if you have a negative real number times with another negative real number, the result is going to be positive, which is positive xy. And this one we have negative x times y. So one number is negative, the other one is positive. So the result here is going to be a negative value. So we can get negative xy, or this is the result here can be obtained by also considering x times negative y. So basically that's all there is to some simple properties of real numbers. And thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.